and Tropes podcast where books and friendships collide. I'm Becca.
And I'm Keri, and we're two friends who love to talk about books. And today we are going to be talking about the second book in the Letters of Enchantment series, Ruthless Vows. And we are specifically talking about part 4, and we will be rating and reviewing this book in our tour de tome.
Yep. Even though this book is a YA fantasy, there are some mature themes throughout, so please check our show notes / description for trigger warnings. If you want any additional details, check out our bookbait episode about Divine Rivals. Even though it's about the first book in this series, it is pretty accurate for both books.
So we will be spoiling both Divine Rivals and Ruthless Vows. So if you haven't yet read either of these books, we'd love to see you back here when you do.
It's time for our one-sentence summaries, where we summarize each chapter we're going to go over in this episode in one sentence. As a reminder, in this episode, we will be talking about part 4, A Crescendo for Dreams. I felt like that was like a, like the really soft, like, I think it's a, why can I not think of it? It's not The Office, it's Parks and Rec. You know how they have the radio show, and it's like the soft, like,
yeah.
Blah, blah. That's what I felt like there. Little Parks and Rec action.
I love that.
Anyways, okay, back to our one-sentence summaries. Chapter 40. After the explosion, Roman is carted off to the Kitt estate by Bruce, where he confronts Mr. Kitt, eases Dacre's worries about a traitor in the midst, and writes correspondence to a surprising recipient.
Chapter 41. Making it safely to the museum after the assassination attempt, Iris meets Enva and has a dream where Enva shares how to kill Dacre and end the war.
Chapter 42. Tobias brings Iris an urgent post to the Inkridden Tribune that leads to a tense meeting for tea and Iris giving in to Dacre.
Chapter 43. Iris is forced to publish Dacre's article in the Inkridden Tribune, but she has a plan to publish Roman's map of the ley lines in the Oath Gazette to help people get to safety when Dacre's attack occurs.
Chapter 44. Iris went back to the Inkridden Tribune to collect the sword and was met with a surprising guest in one last night.
Chapter 45. After saying goodbye to Iris, Roman goes home, where Dacre has discovered that Roman has betrayed him, to which Roman said he would do it 1,000-fold for Iris. Cue the awws.
Aww.
Perfect. I'm gonna have to add a little soundbite right there.
Okay. Chapter 46. Enva visits Iris in another dream, where they go over the plan to kill Dacre again before they were rudely interrupted by an unwanted Val trying to find Iris.
Chapter 47. Roman is being held as a traitor, where he realizes that Dacre feeds his traitors to the Ethereals lurking above.
Chapter 48. The group splits up to find their loved ones and search for a safe spot to wait out the bombings, which just so happens to be the same place they can access a door to the underworld.
Chapter 49. Oath is falling. Marisol and Keegan watch in horror with the army outside, and Forrest and Sarah are nearby when a bomb goes off.
Chapter 50. Iris and Addie go deep into the underground and find Dacre, but Enva shows up with a sleepy siren call and Iris finishes the job.
Chapter 51. Shane, the info dump guy, comes to release Roman, but Roman gets taken as a follower of Dacre to be executed. But Iris has the one thing that can prove his innocence, and when she brings it, she steps in front of the gun meant for him.
Chapter 52. Iris saves Kit and Keegan steps in to speak up for both of them as well, which means Roman needs to see a doctor for his injuries, while Iris works to help rebuild Oath from all the damage and ends up far away in her head when they don't find any survivors.
Chapter 53. Roman becomes a good patient in order to get to Iris as soon as he can, after he saw both Forrest and Sarah's name on the deceased list, and once he is released, he runs to Iris, and they are united, in grief and in love.
Chapter 54. 3 months later, Iris and Roman work to clean out her old apartment, and she finds a letter that shows Forrest was proud of her, and they end up taking a trip to a nearby hill outside of Oath to scatter his ashes.
Chapter 55. A year later, Iris has a garden, and Roman is writing a book where Iris gives him feedback and a small puzzle, where she quotes him back to himself, that he'll find the words that he's looking for.
Epilogue. Enva continues to live in Oath, but is hopeful that the underground passageways will allow her some freedom from the curse she has to stay put.
Dun, dun, dun.
Keri, Go ahead.
Sorry. This probably goes along with my reaction, so it's fine.
Okay.
I'm just glad that we didn't end with, like, them having, like, children a year later.
Yes.
Sounds terrible, but, like, they need it. They need some time.
Yes. I mean, they're young. They're only 19.
Mm-hmm. So very grateful. I was like cringing. I was like, please no, don't do it.
I do love after like a year later chapters. I do love those.
Yeah.
They're a good time.
Yeah. Thank goodness.
So, Keri, what did you think about part 4?
So this was actually my like least favorite part of the entire book and probably the entire series, if we're being honest. I felt like it was super rushed. The ending was super underwhelming and disappointing. It had all this build up for absolutely nothing. I was super disappointed, not gonna lie. Is that gonna stop me from rating it high? No, you'll find out later. But overall, I left with a ton of questions still, and not in a good type of way, like not when like a book ends and you're like, oh, I wonder what happened to them. No, I left with questions like, what even happened? So we'll talk
Yeah.
about that more later, but I felt like a lot of these side characters that we've loved throughout, that we've talked about so much on this podcast too, that they didn't get the attention they deserved, and I think I wanted that in this book as a whole, but especially in part 4. But
Yeah.
yeah, what did you think, Becca?
Yeah, I agree. I felt like we still had a lot of questions at the end of the book, and I wanted to have them answered. It wasn't like you said, it wasn't like oh, where are they now? It was like, we need to know this to like feel closure for the story type thing. I don't think we got that closure that we're looking for, which is kind of sad.
Nope.
I do think, and I think you and I differ in this. I think doing this deep dive on the podcast helped me appreciate the ending more because we got a lot of answers to questions that we have been asking for a while. So I feel like I was satisfied with the questions, with a lot of the questions that we wanted, but I was also like not satisfied because we still had a lot more. But I think had we not done the deep dive, I would have just not been satisfied because I would have had so many questions.
Oh,
So,
yeah, we definitely
um,
differ there. Because I
yeah,
feel like because we did a deep dive, like I'm a very quick, not a quick reader necessarily, probably average, but like I don't take in a lot of the details of a story because I just want to know the ending. So I feel like because we did the deep dive, I thought more about it, and then I was disappointed. I feel like if
yeah.
I didn't do a deep dive, I wouldn't have minded the ending as much.
No, I feel like I'm a reader. Like, I would have picked up on enough that I wouldn't have been happy,
Mm,
but not enough that I got answers to the questions. So I feel like, yeah, I don't know. I feel like I don't know. I would not have been as happy had we not dug as deep as we did, but I also
interesting.
understand your point too. But yeah, I was also disappointed if we're being honest, but I think we'll get more into that later too.
Yeah, I think for me, it felt like she wanted to write a third book, but didn't get the approval from her publisher to write a trilogy. So she had to stuff it into a duology. So it felt like a lot of themes. I feel like she could have dragged out the whole part 4 could have been a book in itself for me. Like if she had dove deeper into everything and made it a little different, in my opinion.
Yeah, I feel like they're not long enough books to have been like cut short. So I almost would have rather like give me another 3 or 5 chapters than like a whole nother book. I don't think it could have supported a whole nother book.
Probably. But it is YA, so I understand why it was 2 books.
That's true. Even still though, like I felt like Hunger Games is pretty long.
Oh, I'll have to look at the pages.
It's not so much the pages as the word count.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah, we'll talk more about our disappointments and our things we liked in our quotables in a second. But first, we're gonna
For
go into.
listeners, for
Oh, go ahead.
listeners, I really hope that you all are not like, wow, these girls suck today. If this is your first episode, because normally we're like, normally we really like the books. We're being honest here in our book review.
I feel like we read books that we like so far, so this is a really good twist. So if you want to hear us talk great about other books, we love Divine Rivals,
We
or at
love
least I
Divine
did.
Rivals, yeah.
And then we loved Addie LaRue. We loved Songbirds and
Valid.
Snakes. Yeah. So
Yeah, I think that, and this is the thing, is like, I liked Ruthless Vows better than Divine Rivals until the last probably 7 chapters.
I would say part 4, like chapter 41. I didn't like it as much. The whole Enva museum thing.
Oh, see, I liked the Enva Museum thing. I think it was chapter 45, I think, for me.
Mm,
Yeah.
interesting.
I think it was like after Roman's declaration of like I would do it 1,000-fold again.
Oh,
Then I
that
was
made me
like,
want to. It was just too cheesy. I couldn't.
yeah, yeah. I think it was that. And then after that, I was like, all right, we're done here.
I was already tuned out. I didn't. No.
But I mean, so I guess the last 10 chapters. But, anyways, other than that, though, I preferred Ruthless Vows. I felt like we got more of the story. We got more of like the world building, which is what I really enjoy. We got a lot more of the story. I felt like we had a lot, like we dug in a lot to different characters, things like that. So I liked Ruthless Vows, except for the last 10 chapters, better than Divine Rivals, I think.
Interesting.
But the last 10 chapters hold a lot of weight in a book.
Yes.
So
yeah, I would agree. How you end a book is more impactful than how it begins,
yes.
in my opinion. Especially when it's a sequel or the third in a series.
Yeah. When you like wrap up the story.
Yep, you need to wrap it strong. Anyways, let's go into our meet cutes. We only have one, and it's because we've already met Enva, kind of, but she is we like meet her as a character. So we learned she's a long, black-haired goddess who has all of the gods' powers except for Dacres. She made a deal with the king to kill all the gods, but because of her vow, she could not kill Dacre. She speaks to and shows mortals things through dreams and is originally the goddess of music. So, that's our girl Inva. I wouldn't say our girl, but we'll talk more about that later.
I
You ready to
promise
dive?
are really fun.
We are. We like some parts of this book.
We liked the majority of this book.
I know. Parts 1 through 3 for me. Literally,
Anyways.
if you listen to part 3's episode, I was like, oh my gosh, I love this book. And then
Literally.
part 4, I'm like, It took, and I wonder, so I was out of town, listeners, for like a week, and I didn't read part 3 immediately. Neither of us did. So
we waited like 2 weeks.
So we had to record part 3's episode so we would keep it spoiler free.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that has something to do with it too. I don't think so, but
maybe
it could have something to do with it because we were really excited about the story, and then we took like a week and a half break, and then yeah, that's probably. Anyways, side note, you ready to do quotables?
Yeah, let's jump into them.
So the first one I have is from chapter 40. So this is when Roman figures out that Bruce is a part of the graveyard. So first off, Bruce to me is confusing. Who knows what this guy is up to? It's kind of how I feel about the graveyard in general. I have no idea what they're up to.
We don't get closure.
I know. That's one of the things.
I feel like that's going to be a common theme throughout this podcast.
We don't
Let's
get
start
closure.
counting how many times we say that.
It's fine. So this part in part 4 made him such an odd and ever-changing character in my head. Like I was like, good guy, bad guy, good guy, bad guy. I didn't ever know what to feel about him. And secondly, if we do talk about this later, I'm not sure this is fine if we do, but I wanted to bring it up before I forgot because I don't necessarily think the graveyard are the good guys here. Like you said, we don't get closure on this, and I don't necessarily think we ever get a good guy. And I don't know if I'm okay with that.
I would agree, although I think Keegan is the good guy. I think we're supposed to root for Keegan.
Yes. But I mean like a god. I don't think we were supposed to root for Dacre. But I also don't know if we're supposed to root for Enva. I'm kind of like, we're just rooting for the mortals and hope they all live.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I think the graveyard is not a I think you guessed this in the last episode, but you said like they're like the governmental third party that's evil, and I think that's kind of where they live. So we did get confirmation here that Bruce was the person who brought the deal to Iris to annul the marriage. So I
Did
thought
you
that
guess?
was interesting. I did guess that. So check for me. Um, check for you, check for me. But we talked about this last week a little bit, and I liked getting that answer. What kills me here is like after the scene that you just talked about, where we find out that Bruce is part of the graveyard, and Roman leaves him to go talk to his dad, that like we don't get any more of Bruce. Well,
We get him briefly with the letter.
I was gonna say I couldn't remember if that was Bruce or not.
Yeah, it was Bruce.
Okay, so I guess we do get a little bit more of him, but it's very brief, and it's like,
Very good guy or
yeah,
bad guy, I don't know.
yeah, I don't know.
All right. Moving on. Chapter 41, where I started to not like this book. The quote is, "The museum is more than just a home for artifacts. In many ways, it's a refuge, and you were right to come here if you were in need." So
Mhm.
this was definitely foreshadowing for when the people of Oath went there for safety. That was kind of like a known thing, I feel like, for the people. They could probably feel the magic and safety that it provided. And then while Iris is talking to Enva here, um, Enva says she's not from Oath, but it's her home now, and she hasn't left it in a very long time. So I like that little piece of kind of where Enva lives. It was not really a question I had in front of mine, but like one that was chilling back there. But I
Yeah.
do just wish we got more about her and the god story. I felt like I was confused, and it didn't live up to what she built up about Enva. Not dissing Rebecca Ross at all, but I
What do you mean?
I just felt like Enva was like throwing a bunch of she was pulling a Shane, info dumping, and I just felt like it was rushed and I was confused. Like I left that chapter confused. I read it like twice.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe that's just me, but I don't know. I
Okay.
felt like I wasn't getting enough info while also getting too much info, and I don't understand that.
Okay, that's interesting because I think that's why I liked chapter 41, because we got a lot of answers to questions that I had been asking. So I think this is going to go back to you and I differ in how we read.
Yeah.
So, like, my questions that I had been asking in our magical moments section for a while were answered. Like, we got a lot of those. And I think this is where I think doing the deep dives helped me because, like I said, we got a lot of those answers, but the way Enva presented it was very riddle like. Like, she didn't come out and say anything very explicitly. She just kind of said like blah 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 blah. Like she
I
just
hated that.
but I think like knowing what we knew from the magical moment section, I didn't feel like we missed any of that. Like, I understood all of it because we had dug in so deep in like the lore, trying to figure out like the magic system and asking those questions. I was like, oh, this relates back to this relates back to this. And I felt like that I got a lot of answers to that chapter, which again, I think just points back to how you and I are different readers.
Yeah.
Okay, so in chapter 41, I have this quote from Enva, and it says, quote, "Have you never wondered what your dreams would be like if you fell asleep in a museum?" And this line was confirmation for me before we even got to Enva's dream walking that she had the other god's power, and she definitely like killed them to get it. I also thought this was a little funny because like I, as a person, dream very vividly. I like remember all of my dreams. Like, it's very like I just always have. And I almost never dream when I'm not at home. So like I almost never dream when I'm away from home. Now, unless we're like at a hotel for like a week or something, then like I will just because I get used to it. But it's funny because I was like, my dreams in a museum, I've never wondered about them because they'd probably be non-existent because I don't dream when I'm away from home.
Yeah. I feel like I dream more when I'm away from home.
Really?
Yeah, because I'm usually traveling and stressed about something, which is when I dream.
Oh, that makes sense.
So I'm like thinking through like the day or like the travel coming up or something, and so I'll dream about that.
That makes sense. Yeah, I don't feel like that. I just feel like I'm like I have to sleep when I'm on vacation or like away from home. So like my body is just like not, I don't know.
Makes
Anyways.
sense.
We also get this second quote here that says, quote, "Don't think too hard about it, Iris," the woman said, her raven hair shining blue in the strange light, "or else this will break." So this is confirmation of what was happening in the other dreams. And we had this question last week. We talked about it pretty in depth about like why, like, is it Elzane's lullaby that like is breaking the dreams, or is it the fact that like now we get the confirmation that it's because Iris was thinking too hard about them and like not understanding why her mom was there and like all of those things. And so I really like that we got that confirmation of like why the dreams were breaking beforehand, because she was thinking too hard about them.
Mm-hmm. And I like that we got confirmation of why they were hearing the lullaby, why they were, why she was using her mom to get to her in order for her to trust her. So like Envo was being sneaky, but I liked getting answers on what that was.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. So, chapter 40, where am I? 41. Chapter 41. Many pieces of the past have been rewritten or lost, forgotten. Think of all the books in the library with pages torn free. First of all, does this sound like any other particular book that we know and love?
Addie?
No, Fourth Wing. Rewritten or lost?
Oh, that did not even click, obviously.
That's okay. You were probably thinking podcast books. It's fine.
I was.
No, I just thought that was I love that idea. Like history is like could have been rewritten or lost. So
Yeah.
history is forgotten and stuff like that. I love that theme entirely. Loved it in Fourth Wing. Loved it in this. So I like that little nod. Also, I would love to know if Enva has any pieces of the past that has been rewritten or lost from her. Like if she has particularly rewritten or lost things, which I think could have been the case because she lied to the king. So she could have had the history written down incorrectly. She definitely seems to be hinting at Dacre doing this, and most likely in her lullaby, but still. I feel like she has a part in it too.
So I don't think Dacre had anything to do with this because remember, he just woke up.
Yes, but he destroys the books that make him
true.
look bad.
That's
and like
true.
history keeps getting lost or not passed down by his followers. So I think that's what it's kind of pointing to.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. I didn't even think of that. All right, chapter 42. Quote, "Act like you hate him again, despise him, like he isn't the other half of you." So this is when Iris goes to meet Dacre for tea, and Roman is in the room with them. And this was a very familiar vibe to when Iris and Roman met for tea the last time, and Roman gave her the letter from Dacre about trying to get Iris to write for Dacre. So very similar vibes, very similar things. And this is where I think so this was very cheesy to me because Liam and I started dating when we were pretty young, probably right around the time that Roman and Iris, like right around this time in our lives. And I can never remember thinking, oh, like Liam is the other half of me. Like that's just like not something that ever would have like come to mind. Now, Now I think he's my other half, right? Like I think of that, but it's never something that I would be like, I can't, I don't know. That was like too over the top for me. I just was too much.
That's funny. Meanwhile, I'm in like chapter 42 and I'm like a quote from Roman and Iris here is like in this intense scene and he's like Dacre's like telling him to touch like put her fingers on the key and I believe she's like, yeah, if Iris is thinking, if he touches me, I will sunder in two. That's a hard word.
That is a hard word.
She thought fire in her blood. If he touches me, I will come undone. And I think this for me, especially the past few weeks, like whenever I'm like really upset or anxious, like one touch from Jesse will just either really calm me down or just like give me a lot of peace and like kind of centers me and like I just feel so safe and loved. And so I related to this scene a lot because it's like, okay, I won't be able to like if he touches me, I feel like calm, but like I would feel that similarly to Iris and Roman if they like if we were in that situation in that intense situation and he had to touch me, I would just be like, okay, I'm gonna cry now. So I feel like I related to this a lot and could see myself in this situation a lot. So I like that.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I agree with everything you just said. So, yep.
Yeah. Good
I think
good scene.
yeah, I think you brought this up and I didn't even think about this. We don't really ever get confirmation that Iris is fire.
I know. Got so many references to fire and ice and
I
nothing.
know. And we get confirmation that Roman is ice.
Yeah.
We just don't get that confirmation that that Iris is fire.
Who knows? We didn't get a confirmation about a lot. It's fine.
All right, so we're at 3 for the episode now.
We're about halfway-ish. It's
Okay.
fine. Okay. Anyways, chapter 43. Quote, tell him it's courtesy of ink-ridden Iris. So, of course, this line is just Iris being absolutely amazing and so sassy. And we get a callback to her first thing in her first article in Divine Rivals, where, oh my gosh, Helena. Yes, that's her name.
Mm-hmm.
Helena asks her what she wants the articles to be named under. So, I love that callback. I also just like wanted to dig into this a little bit because we get this full circle moment where yes, she has to publish Dacre's article with the ink-ridden Tribune, but she also has this amazing and brilliant idea of giving Oath citizens a way to save their lives and a way to not surrender to Dacre by publishing it in the Oath Gazette, which was her previous employer where she met Roman and everything. So I feel like it was a callback to like how much she has grown and a full circle moment where she has grown from just Iris Winnow to Ingrid and Iris and Elizabeth to back to Ingrid and Iris and just kind of her growth as an author and a journalist. And I just feel like this was a good moment and a look into her character development. And I love her mind just shining through. And she's the hero here without even cutting Dacre's head off. And hated this, by the way. I hated that she was the one to kill him. Just didn't love that. I wanted Forrest to kill him. Chapter 44. Iris, that's really hard. Iris is sharing the info that she learned with Roman about Enba and the gods and how she killed the other gods, but she did not kill Dacre. And Roman says it would have saved us endless trouble if she had done that one thing. This was literally my thoughts. I was like, really though, just break your freaking vow. I mean, we didn't know about the vow yet, but I was like, come on.
Still.
I was like, Enba, you're not the good guy here. But mainly, I wanted to bring this up because I don't understand why Enba took so long to share this info about Dacre and the sword until Iris, just like as Iris exists. Like, I don't understand why it took a whole war and this random journalist correspondence for the war. Why Iris? I just don't understand why Iris. Why was she such a big part of it? Why couldn't it have been a random soldier or another correspondent or Addie or like It just felt like, okay, hero moment. Nah, I don't love it.
I feel like if it had been, I didn't mind that it was Iris. I felt like it almost needed to be Iris, but if it had been anybody else, it should have been Shane.
Yeah.
Like, Shane
Dude.
deserved that.
Yeah.
But I'm not mad that it was Iris. I understand what you're saying, though. Like, why did it take so long? Like, when the war started, you could have just, like, you were enlisting soldiers already. Like,
why couldn't you just share that info with them?
yeah.
It just seemed unnecessary.
Yeah.
We waited so long. I mean, I get it for the story.
Yeah.
Now that they're an oath, it makes more sense. But, like, I don't know. She was getting closer to Dacre. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I also think, like, you said, like, another correspondent. Like, I think Iris and Addie were the first two. Like, I don't think there were correspondents before them. Because remember, like, Iris responded to the ad, like, what was it? Like, 2 days after it came out?
That's true. For some reason, I thought the article she first read was by a correspondent from the Incredin Tribune before the ad about what was really happening.
Oh, I don't know if that was from a correspondent or if that was just, like, what they were publishing.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't think about that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Times.
Yeah.
I also, on an unrelated note, absolutely love their entire scene, Roman and Iris, in the Incredin Tribune. It was very full circle because they're back in a work office, but they're together. So it was very cute.
That whole scene gave me, like, anxiety. I was like, we gotta know that you're being tracked here. Like, this is...
Oh, yeah.
Like, both of them have gone through experiences where they have been followed by other people. Like, why is that not something that you thought of?
Like, literally, Roman, you knew you shouldn't trust your freedom, bro. It's okay. At that point, I knew I was like, okay, he's getting caught. It's fine.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna live in the moment.
Yeah. Okay, chapter 45. Roman shifted uncomfortable. He had conflicted feelings about Forrest, but he didn't want Iris to know that, the main issue being how he had watched Forrest drag her along unknowingly during the bombing at Hawkshire. So this is one of those lines where I appreciated Roman being on, like, giving us this side of, like, not everybody just loves Forrest, especially because, like, we did not love Forrest, especially at the beginning of Ruthless Vows, at the end of Divine Rivals. Like, we did not like him. So I appreciated that we got that little bit of, like, you don't really know how you're supposed to feel about Forrest. It really depends on, like, the view that you're coming from, right? This is also one of those lines where I thought, like, it's so this whole conversation they're talking about, like, yeah, like, we can have a picnic in a park and whatever, and this is one of those lines where I thought we were going to get an after bombing, like, reunion / picnic, and this is what I kind of hoped that, like, 6 months later chapter was going to be, of, like, him and Forrest and Roman and Iris and Forrest and Sarah, like, all letting bygones be bygones and having picnics in the park or whatever. And that obviously didn't happen,
unfortunately,
because of the unfortunate events of the bombing. But we also didn't get a resolution to this thought by Roman.
Nope.
So, like, I was like, why? This was almost like a why was this line in here if we didn't get a resolution to it.
Yeah, it seems silly.
Yeah.
Like, obviously he had feelings about Forrest.
Yeah.
But why did I didn't feel like that was necessary in the story at that time.
Well, not even that. I mean, to me, I think it was an intention, like, the intention was to be like, no, like, he's not going to go in and meet Forrest. But he didn't have to say that. He could have just said, like, I have to go back. Like, they're going to be waiting for me.
Which he should have done that
Yeah.
like hours ago.
Yeah.
But that's okay. He's alive. He's fine.
Yeah. Anyways, later on in chapter 45, we get the quote, "You betrayed me for a woman," Dacre said. "You are the greatest fool in my forces as well as my greatest shame." So this was like the most dramatic line. And like, I know
So
we've talked about,
dramatic.
I know we've talked about like the cheesiness and whatever already, but like this line, I was like here for the drama.
Oh
It's like, so I forget who has this quote, but it's like something about like wars have been fought over less than like a love for a woman or something like that. So like there's that. And then Dacre is like ruining the whole world for Enva. So it's like
literally, he's literally
hypocrite.
betraying the world for a woman.
Exactly. And then we get this, "You are the greatest fool in my forces as well as my greatest shame." And for those of you who have been following us on social media, you have seen that Keri and I have been watching season 3 of Bridgerton. And this line doesn't give season 3, it gives season 2, but it's when Anthony and Kate are in the office after they find out, and he's like, "You are the bane of my existence, but the object of all of my desires."
Oh, the best line in the entire Bridgerton series.
And so anyway, so this is immediately what I thought of, is like, "You were the greatest fool in my forces as well as my greatest shame." It was like the like
and the object of my desires. Plot twist.
Exactly. But I also love how Dacre is trying to be like insulting here. Like he's trying really hard to insult Roman, and like Roman doesn't care at this point. Like he doesn't care that Dacre doesn't like him. He doesn't care that Dacre thinks he's a fool. He doesn't care that Dacre thinks he's his greatest shame. Like Dacre is Roman's greatest shame. So like, you were trying really hard, my friend, but didn't land. Know your audience.
Know your audience. And also, like, he's known him for like a week. Like, what are we doing?
Well, it's been a little bit longer than a week.
Yeah, I'm being dramatic.
Oh.
He's known him for like a day. It's fine.
It's fine.
Just if he knew Shane like was betraying him.
I know. Like
dude, that Shane is your greatest shame.
Shane is definitely your greatest shame.
Shame. Same difference.
Same thing.
Yeah, he was a big drama king right there. Didn't love that.
It just cracked me up. We love Anthony Bridgerton. We do not love Dacre.
Oh, before we get distracted by Bridgerton, chapter 46. This is when she's like wielding the sword and she's like carrying it around, and like she's about to try to like, I think it's right before she tries to kill Dacre or something, or she's trying to use the sword. Whenever she's trying to use the sword, it says she had never felt more awkward wielding something in her life. And I was like, finally a relatable heroine who is also awkward and doesn't automatically look heroic. So yay.
I feel like there have been a lot of like, I saw this before, like when we were like outlining. I feel like we get a lot of relatable heroines.
We do, but I feel like this one just, she said it was awkward, and I like that. Like calling it out, not just like explaining it, just like calling out, I feel awkward wielding this. I was like, yes, thank you.
Gotcha.
But moving on to chapter 48. It's a quote she says when the bombing is happening. She hated how familiar this felt. She hated how she saw Avalon Bluff every time she closed her eyes. So I know when I first read this part, I had truly forgotten that Iris and Rowan both have lived such a similar situation already, where their home, because Avalon Bluff was their home at the time, where their home is being destroyed and their lives are being completely ruined by it. And that wound is still so fresh, because this isn't like a long period of time since last time they have been through this, and they're probably both suffering a lot of PTSD from that situation alone. And I like this line because it's just a good reminder that they've seen it before and are still suffering and dealing with those feelings and the consequences of that. I just feel really bad for them. But I like that she reminded us, like, hey, remember that they've already been through this a couple times. So
yeah,
really
I did appreciate, that's one of the things I appreciated throughout both books, is like you don't heal immediately from trauma. Like,
Mm-hmm.
even like, so we had the 3 months later, and then we also had the year later chapter. Like, in both of those, we saw very clearly that they were still struggling with that trauma
Yeah.
experience. And I really appreciated that it was not an immediate thing, that like they had to go through and process it.
Yep. Even with her mom,
Mm-hmm.
she works through that loss through both books. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I really like that part about Rebecca Ross, how she kept that flowing. So well done, Rebecca Ross. Chapter 51, where I was right. I'm so excited. I have a letter in my flat if it survived. So we've talked about this in part 1 extensively, where the letter not being burned would come back to either haunt them or to help them, and it helped them. But we're gonna, well, kinda. Like, it at least helped him from not being executed. So we're here for that. So we also got one of our questions answered about the letter, like if it would help or haunt them. So yes, I'm glad I was right. I'm just so happy when I'm right.
I highlighted that in my Kindle and I wrote Keri was right, and I like laughed out loud when I read this because Keri called it. I was so against it.
You were.
You even almost said exactly like what was gonna happen. Like, you
Did I?
called it. Yeah, you were like, yeah, they're gonna come back and he's gonna be a traitor and he's gonna be on trial and she's gonna need the letter to, like, you called it
Dang.
almost
I
exactly.
don't even remember that. Look at me. Good job,
So,
me.
yeah, but I guess she was right, and I guess you were right. So
I'm here
check
for it.
for Keri.
I'm here
Point.
for it. All right. So next one is from chapter 52. She was broken by what could have been, by what now would never be. So I have a confession to the listeners to make. And I texted Becca this when we finished, or right before we started part 4.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't tell her what the spoiler was, but I have known a spoiler since before reading this book. I thank you, TikTok. Not
Maybe.
really thank you. Not even thank you, because we need to normalize not sharing spoilers like that on TikTok.
We need to normalize giving spoiler warnings on TikTok. I don't mind the spoilers as long as I have the warning enough to like decide if I don't want to hear it or not.
Like, don't start your video with Forrest dies, because that's how I found out.
Dang.
They were like, I didn't like this book because Forrest died. And I was like, I didn't even have time to I don't even know who the creator was, whatever. It was just, I was scrolling, but I didn't have time to scroll. It's fine. I just want it to be on the record in the recording that I have successfully kept a spoiler in the entire series. We've covered this. And I have not given away any hints that I know of. I was very careful.
You did very good. I wrote a little bit later, but I was not expecting this at all until they started focusing on Sarah and Prindle. Like, the moment that Forrest left, I was like, well, he's gonna die. But yeah, I wasn't happy about the deaths, but I wasn't like outraged, probably because we all had conflicting feelings about Forrest. But anyways.
And I think that's why I didn't like their deaths. Okay. So I didn't like, I'm gonna back up. I didn't like that Sarah died. And I didn't really like that Forrest died. I didn't like that Forrest died because it wasn't heart-wrenching and didn't like break my heart. I expected to be brokenhearted because I had seen a lot of like non-spoiler reviews that were like, this book killed me, it made me so sad, like the deaths, and I was like, I'm not really sad because I wanted to like have that sadness. I was more sad about her mom in Divine Rivals.
Yeah.
Or I expected there to be like more redemption and more reconciliation between Iris and Forrest, and there wasn't. Yeah. So like we didn't have the like feelings that I wanted to have towards Forrest. However, with that, I hated how he died. I fully expected him to die for Iris and that being his like redemption arc or defeating Dacra or something, but I just hated how he died. And it's probably because like a lot of other people died in that way. In Oath. I hated how he died. He did like try to save Sarah, which I thought was nice. But I just didn't feel sad, or I I felt angry that Sarah was also dying. I was mad.
It would have been better had he been with Iris to go underground, and then he had the sword, Dacre killed him, and Iris finished the job to like avenge her brother.
Because it just felt uneventful, and like when the flashing light, I was like, oh, okay. He's dead. Cool.
Yeah, I do have to say, I was brokenhearted that Sarah died. That was hard for me. Especially like, yeah, it was Sarah dying was sad for me, but I wasn't heartbroken about Forrest.
No. And for Iris, specifically for her grief, I didn't like that it was Forrest because she has lost so much already. And it would have been sad for Sarah to live without Forrest if Sarah had survived. But I think it would have helped Iris in the long run because Sarah was also her person. Like, she had Addie and Tobias and Roman, but like I think Sarah was her person too. And I think it would have helped Iris in the long run. And I just didn't feel that extra death was necessary.
Yeah, it would have like bonded because Addie didn't really lose anybody. No. So I think it would have bonded like the three of them a little bit better and a little bit more different.
Yeah, and I think Sarah would have moved on and had like a knowing what she's looking for and what kind of person she would want, someone that reminds her of Forrest and how he made her feel.
Yeah.
So I just didn't love it. Gross. -10 out of 10.
-10 out of 10.
I just didn't like that she killed Sarah, so
that's so funny. Okay, and our last quotable comes from the epilogue, and it says, quote, "On this particular Dacre's day, Enva spent longer than usual at Gold's." So this whole epilogue didn't make a lot of sense to me, starting with the title of it. It started, like, the title was Coda. Do you know what that means?
Yeah, it's the, like, kind of end piece of a musical piece. So it's like the last musical theme or something to end the musical piece.
Oh, well.
Gives it closure, gives it, like... Even it didn't make sense. When I saw it was Coda, I was like, oh, we're gonna get the answers because that's what it typically means in music.
That's hilarious. But I love that you knew that. That's why I was so confused. I was like, who is Coda? I thought it was like a name. And that's what I thought we were gonna get, was like Coda was like the daughter of Iris and Roman, and like Coda would have been like, Roman would have like been tucking her in and been like, well, that's a story for another day, or something like dumb like that, like almost like the Princess Bride, you know, how like at the end. But that's what I was expecting from that, and that makes so much more sense that Coda is like a musical term because okay, well, that makes more sense. Well, now I'm a little bit less confused.
Well, I'm glad we could clear that up.
But in my defense, I mean, like, for people who like, you studied music, like for people who didn't study music, I don't think that would have landed.
No, I did think it was a clever chapter title for Enva's ending, I thought. Yeah, because I went, oh, that's cute. I literally was like, cute.
That's funny. Well, you know, it makes sense if you understand what it means.
Yeah. But I like the creativity of Coda being their kid or something.
Anyways, okay, so beyond just the title, I think I would have rather had closure on Addie and Tobias or Keegan and Marisol rather than the closure on Enva, especially because I don't feel like we got closure with Enva. Like, I felt like she went into the underground and like we don't know if she was able to travel any further. We don't know if she like went on to live her life. We don't know if she's trapped in the underground again. Like we don't really know. Like, I felt like I was left with more questions. Like, had we not had that epilogue, I wouldn't have thought anything of it. I would have just been like, it's done. But like with that, I felt like I had more questions.
Yes. Same.
So
I was just like, what the crap? Like, come on. Like I wanted some closure. I like thought it would be like Addie and Marisol, and maybe like a brief mention of Enva. But when I did see the title, I was like, dang it, it's gonna be Enva.
Yeah, I don't know, but the epilogue I could have done without. I almost wish the epilogue was like the last like 1 year later chapter.
Mm,
Like that would have been nice.
yeah. I mean, I did enjoy the 1 year later where they're like she does have a garden, like she did in Avalon Bluff, and it's kind of a very similar parallel to their Avalon Bluff days where he's like riding upstairs, and it was
I
cute.
I love a 1 year later chapter. I love them. Like I live for them. We should have more of them
Yeah.
because it's like it gives us the little picture of the future. Like they're
Hmm.
happy, you know? So I loved it. But I guess what I was trying to say is like I wish that was like the last thing we got.
Yeah, I agree. Because I could have lived without that epilogue.
Yeah. Anyways.
That's our quotables. It's a
Wow.
lot.
Wait, this has been a very sad episode.
That's okay. That's okay. Let's go into our sipping tea. So we did this in part 3 of Divine Rivals, but we're gonna do Enva again. So this time I chose an Assam black tea with a dollop of honey. So this is because I had to write this down because I would remember.
Okay.
But this tea has notes of caramel and malt, but is also a bright tea that is typically drank in the morning to help you wake up. So
Oh.
I chose this because she's awake and the only god living. And
Ooh.
it's a very complicated tea to make. So,
Okay.
or like to create with the tea leaves and the flavors of caramel and malt. So she's complicated, so we're going to give her that tea.
Okay. I love it.
So what we said in part 3 of Divine Rivals was I said a very light green tea with lots of sugar. I stand by that with what I knew about her at the time. And I
Okay.
still stand by that. I feel like she'd be a green tea drinker.
Okay.
And what did you say?
Yeah, so I said at that time the new lavender cold foam matcha latte with oat milk. And
Mm-hmm.
I also am going to stand by that. Although I don't know if I think the I don't know if I like the lavender cold foam with her. I think maybe just like normal cold foam. I don't know. I think she yeah, I don't know if I like the lavender cold foam, but I do like the matcha latte with oat milk. I think it just like I almost envision Enva as like uh is it Tafiti in Moana?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's kind of how I picture her. So like the matcha latte matches.
That does match. I feel like she could be like a matcha latte with oat milk with like a toffee nut cold foam or something. Like
Oh
a
yeah.
nutty, like something
Yeah.
unexpected.
Ooh, maybe I'll try that the next time I go.
Let me know if it's good. I've never tried it. I
I
know toffee
will.
nut cold foam is good because I made it when I had no customers.
Okay. Interesting.
If you
Yeah,
try it, let me know.
I will. Maybe I'll try it today.
Ooh.
We need a little caffeine this morning.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This magical moments is going to be pretty short, and I have a couple questions at the end that I'm going to say that we don't have answers to. Okay, so as we wrap up the last part of the series, I just want to kind of finalize a couple of things in this magical moments section that we got answers to, right? So we do get confirmation that Enva killed the other gods. We get this confirmation that Dekra is healing, that he has the power of healing, but Enva is music and knowledge, rain and harvest, nightmares and dreams, and illusions. So that covers that covers Enva plus Myrrh, Alva, and Luce. So all four. She says, quote, if he were to kill me as he longs to do, then he would take all of my magic into himself. She took the other three's power because she didn't want Dacre to harvest such magic when he woke. And she goes on to say, like, he would feast on mortal fear by having all these powers. So, like,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, I think Enva having the magic is probably the lesser of two evils. Actually, I'm gonna confidently say it's the lesser of two evils, but what's interesting here to me, and this is a question that I have, is that getting others' magic weakens the initial magic of the god or goddess. So I wish we had gotten more information here because this was such a throwaway line for us to only learn. Number one, we learn it so late in the book.
So late.
Number two, it honestly didn't affect the story that much. So, like, for them to be the last two gods that lived, right? So, we talked about this before. There were hundreds of gods beforehand. And, like, we got a very clear example of Myr killing a god to get the mind reading ability, right?
Mhm.
He would have had to know that like he killed we're assuming a lot of gods, that like it weakens your initial magic. The 5 that are left out of the hundreds that lived had to have known that this was going to happen. So like it was just interesting to me because she acted surprised that she didn't know that getting the other magics was going to be like weakening her magic, but she had to have killed other gods before because she's literally one of the last 5 out of the hundreds that have lived. So
No
anyways. Okay. Next, we're going to dig into the time in the underworld. So Roman is shackled, and he notes that the prisoners are used for the food for the Ethereals, which I thought was interesting because before we've talked about like how the hounds didn't really like get food, right?
Mhm.
And they were hungry and they were obnoxious huskies or whatever. But but we don't get any like information about the Ethereals, and so like to get the prisoners being used as food for Ethereals makes sense, especially in the underground. We also get confirmation that the Ethereals are controlled by Flute. This is a big deal because Dacre calls the Ethereals back to them when he's fighting with Addie and Iris as well. We already knew that they were controlled, but I was impressed at how clearly they could be controlled, I guess.
Yeah.
What we don't ever get confirmation about is that the Ethereals are get loose out of the underground when Dacre is killed. So we talked so much about a bird in a cage and how they wanted to get out, and they were supposed to be the bird in the cage wanting to get out, even though obviously like Roman and Iris, like it was a metaphor, but like they were a very physical being that needed to get out of a cage, and we don't ever get confirmation. I was kind of expecting like this like freedom, like, oh, now that Dacre is dead, like the Ethereals fly above us and we don't have to be scared or something like that. We just like didn't really get that either.
That would be nice. I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, so it was just like also like what happens to the hounds?
So many questions.
Lastly, we get Enva's siren song that eventually puts Dacre in a sleep-like state so Iris can kill him. This was so confusing to me.
I just read your note and I was like, yes, yes.
Because if Enva could sing a sleep-like song and put Dacre to sleep, why was the war necessary? This was an illusion, so why didn't she just show up as an illusion before? Why didn't she, going back to like your note earlier, why didn't she just give a random soldier the sword and sing him to sleep? Like,
yeah,
why did we need Addie to play Alzane's lullaby if she like
if
Addie didn't even really do anything? She ran
No.
away.
And
Which
Enver
I'm
was just
not-
like, oh god, I got it. Don't worry, guys.
Which I'm not like upset with Addie about. Like I want to be very clear. Like I would run. Like Addie, you're our girl. We love you. But like Enva, why couldn't you just use your siren song and lure Dacre and then Iris kill him or somebody else kill him? Like
anyone.
Literally anybody. So
it was so bad. It was so confusing. I was like, why is Addie here? Where the heck have you been, Enva? Like, girl.
Right. If she's illusions, she okay. I'm not the biggest fan of Enva.
It was giving like I think in Star Wars where they're like the screens pop up. I was like, what are you doing here? Like a screen message like pops up as like Ryan. Have you seen Star Wars?
I've seen the first 3.
Okay.
Liam and I are working through them.
Good series. Love that. Last one made me cry.
Oh. Okay. I have a few questions that I wanted to highlight that we don't get an answer to that I was really hoping we would get the answer to. And maybe you called it. Maybe you caught the answers to these and I didn't, which is totally possible. Okay. The new Chancellor of Oath, it's a she. It's very clearly a she. They highlight it multiple times because like Roman even like gets corrected. She will need to decide. Who is the new Chancellor?
I'm assuming it's Keegan.
That's what I was assuming too, but we don't get confirmation.
We don't. I think we were supposed to assume it was Keegan, though. I know.
It should have been Keegan comes to the hospital and is like, Roman, you're free. Like, okay.
Should have.
So that's one question. The second question, which I highlighted a couple times, like what happened to all the people in the underground? Like I highlighted the Ethereals and the Hounds, but we also have like the woman who was glamored under there. We also have the dog with wings. Like we have so many things in the underground. Like what happens?
We never even got to explore that.
One of the things I really liked though was we got confirmation that like so Val when he's traveling with Roman to deliver something to Mr. Kit the first time, Val says there's always ways to know like where you're going, and we do get confirmation from Iris that the how do you say it, the malice sites, I don't know, but the gems that like are hanging from the ceiling, like they're meant to be used as like street signs, which I thought was kind of fun. So I did like that. But anyways, all that to say is maybe this should have been called Magical Questions with Becca instead of Magical Moments with Becca, because I feel like we have more questions than answers in this segment. But
Magical Questions.
Magical Questions.
I'm gonna post this one and it is gonna do the thingy again.
I love it.
It should be called that because that was rough.
Okay, so now on to our tour de tome. After we go through each book on this podcast, we will be doing a segment called Tour de Tome, which we're doing right now, where we go back and reflect on the book and give our ratings of it. The ratings will be given on 6 topics: plot, character development, writing style, gut feeling, recommendability, and overall rating. And Keri and I will be giving our reactions, our ratings on all of these individually. And as a reminder, this is 5 out of 5 typewriters. Right?
Yes.
We're sticking with typewriters.
Yeah, why not?
Okay.
Let's do it.
Cool.
You wanna start with plot? Tell us your...
I gave the plot a 3.
Same. 3.
I feel like to be any higher, we would have needed to get more answers.
Yeah, 100%. Character development?
4.
I said the same. Look at us.
Okay. I said 4 mostly because of Iris.
Yeah, same. I felt like there was not really much else.
Yeah.
Anyone else. But for her, definitely a 4.
Yeah. Writing style?
I said 5.
Okay.
I love Rebecca Ross's writing style. It's it makes me feel like I'm home. We've talked about that a lot. What about you?
I said a 4, and I only said a 4. I probably should give it a 4.5 because I do like Rebecca Ross's writing style, and I am very much looking forward to reading more of her books. I did not give it a 5 because there were some parts that were confusing, and I feel like that comes down to writing style, whether that's and I think of writing style as like including like vocabulary and sentence structure and things like that. So for the vocabulary to be confusing at some points was we're gonna throw it back to Coda. I had no idea what that meant, right? So like that's kind of why. So I think I'll give it a 4.5.
Okay.
Yeah, because like I said, I'm really looking forward to reading more of her books.
Yeah, me too. I already have. There's one on Kindle Unlimited. So,
is it A River Enchanted?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the next one.
It's already on my Kindle. I'm ready.
Nice. I love it.
Gut feeling. I said 5 because it. Okay, let me explain. In relation to parts 1 through 3, my gut feeling, I felt great. I was happy, loved it. Part 4, nah.
No, gut feeling is how you feel when you close the book.
Oh, then we definitely would have 3 for sure. We're gonna change that on my notes real quick. 3. I forgot what gut feeling was.
Keri, we've gone through this every time.
I know. I always forget.
Gut feeling is how you feel when you close the book. I
Well,
said 3.5.
I'm giving mine a 3 because I did not feel good after I closed the
Yeah.
book.
Yeah.
I swiped. It said Goodreads. What do you want to rate this? I said I don't know. So I kept swiping and closed the book.
That's funny. Okay,
Yeah.
recommendability.
I would say 5 because of the series as a whole.
Yeah, I give a 5 too. I
Mm.
think this series is a very good this series is very easy to recommend, and it's a very safe recommend because it has so many aspects to it that people could like, right?
Mhm.
So maybe they like the fantasy elements. There's not a ton. You can read it and not be a fantasy lover, but there's some, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of historical things. There's some historical romance in there. There's wartime, right? There's so many things in here that, like, this is a really good book. If you've never recommended a book to anybody before, hey, read this, tell me what you like, and we can go from there.
Yeah, I agree with that completely.
Yeah.
All right, overall rating.
I gave it a 3.5.
Dang. I gave it a 4 only because I had it as a 5 originally, and then Becca yelled at me.
Keri had it as a 5. And I was like, Keri, you cannot have it as a 5. I was like, even if you give it a 4.9, I said, in your introduction, how you felt about this book, you said, I was disappointed. You cannot give a book a 5 overall if you said I was disappointed.
I'm an Enneagram 9. I can't help it. If I enjoyed the book in some aspect, I will rate it a 5. Like, I originally gave Akatar a 3, and then I kept thinking about the story, and I was like, you know what? I really like this part, so I changed it to a 4.
Okay.
I'm a process thinker too, so.
Okay. No, I gave it, I said 3.5. I think I'm going to give it a 3.8 because I don't think it's worth a 4, but I don't think it's worth a 3.5.
Okay.
I think mostly, like, thinking back, I would give Divine Rivals a 4. I think I gave it, I think I gave that a 3.8 too. I would give Divine Rivals a 4. I would give this a 3.8, mostly because of the ending. That holds a lot of weight to me. The endings do. Yeah. Mostly because I hate endings. Like, I hate thinking about them. I just hate things ending, like, in general, like, even TV series. Like, sometimes I like won't even watch the last episode because, like, I can't, like, process. So
Yeah.
like, endings for a book have to be, like, really, really good, and I just that's why. Now, had the ending, we talked about a couple of things we would have changed. Had those things been changed, this definitely would have been at least a 4, probably better, because I liked parts 1 through 3 so much.
Yeah.
But endings hold a lot of weight for me.
Makes sense. It's valid.
Yeah. So, well, thank you so much for listening to us today, even though we were Debbie Downers for a lot of it.
Well, I did look. Okay, in our defense, I did deep dive on reviews on Goodreads, and a lot of people feel very similarly. So
okay,
it's rated pretty high, but it was like, oh, this book was good until the end.
Yeah,
so
that makes sense.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry.
And I feel like, okay, so this is, I think, where I differ in, like, rating most of the time. I think of it in percentages, right? So, like, 3 out of 5 for me is, like, a 65%. Like, that's still a passing score. Like, it's, like, I still passed, right? But, like, I feel like some people, like, a 3 is, like, the worst they would ever rate a book. I don't subscribe to that. I'm like,
me. If I hated the book, you might get a 2.
Like,
if I hated it.
Well, that's the thing. Like, if I hated a book, I would give it a 1. Like, I just don't have that fear because now this is not this book. I just want to clarify. That is not this book. Like, it's getting a 3.8 because it's like, to me, that's like what, a 78%? Like, that's still really good. Like, you're in B minus territory here. So like, I think, like, I don't know. I just want to clarify that because like I said, a lot of people like subscribe to like, you rate a book a 3 and like it's the worst book you ever read. Like, I do not subscribe to that. So like a 3.8 to me is still like a very good book.
Even I was looking at my Goodread reviews. And I didn't really like Carnegie's Maid, and I rated it 4 stars.
I thought you liked Carnegie's Maid.
I've been thinking about it more, and I'm like, I didn't really love it.
Awesome.
I'm a problem. Anyways.
Do we want to say what our next book's gonna be?
Oh, should we?
I think we should.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, so our next book is going to be, I'm very excited about this. Drumroll, please. Powerless by Lauren Roberts. It's Lauren Roberts, right?
I think so.
I just like had a panic attack. I gotta look on my Kindle.
I was just flicking.
Yeah, it's Lauren Roberts. Whew. Okay, but yes, so it's going to be Powerless by Lauren Roberts. We are going to be doing 6 parts. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, we're going to be doing 6 parts of Powerless. We're going to do it in 10 chapter chunks. We'll release a schedule on our social media of what we're going to do right after Powerless, because it will, so the second book in the series comes out on, I believe it's July 2nd. Right after Powerless, we're going to go directly into Reckless coverage. So we're very excited about that too. So we have our next 2 books out that will at least take us until probably until September.
Dang. It's exciting.
Yeah, that's very exciting. So stay tuned for Powerless. We're very, very excited. I have read the book already. Keri has not. So it's going to be a little bit of a different dynamic. And we're going to do a book bait episode probably in the next week or so to kind of give y'all a little bit of an update on that.
Keep an eye out.
Yeah, we're excited. Keri, are you excited?
I'm very excited. I already downloaded it on my Kindle. I'm ready to go.
I'm very excited. It's going to be a great time. Okay, anyways, thank you so much for listening to us today. If you liked today's episode, please rate and review us wherever you listen and give us 5 stars. If you're watching us on YouTube, please like this video and subscribe to our channel to get notified of all our episodes. Also, the best thing you can do for us or any other podcast you listen to is share us with your friends. If you've been wanting to get a friend to read the Letters of Enchantment series, let them know we're here to read along. They can start off with us with Divine Rivals Part 1 and go through this episode. So let them know we're here.
For sure. And for more content, make sure to follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Tomes and Tropes Pod. That's also where you'll find our schedule. So when we start Powerless, you'll see that. And if you have any thoughts about this episode or this book, email us at tomesandtropespod@gmail.com or send us a DM. We'd love to hear from you. We'd specifically love to hear your thoughts on this book and the series. If you had any extra thoughts and agree or disagree with us, we'd love to hear. And we'll see you next week for our Between the Lines episode. So,
Very excited. Stay curious and keep reading.
Bye.
Bye.